Hello friends and welcome back to Malicious Compliance Stories. Let's start our video with a story where OP, tired of her sister's chronic lateness, decides to walk away from their dinner plans when her sister is significantly late again. Sister's chronic tardiness finally makes me walk away. I, 27-year-old female, had plans to go out to dinner with my sister, 30-year-old female, as we do every month. She lives in my hometown and I live in the next state over with my BF. We're about 35 minutes to an hour apart depending on traffic. We agreed to meet closer to hometown with my mom. One thing about her, she's always late. I expect she'll always be at least 30 minutes late, but it's been up to a few hours, and not just random plans, weddings and graduations too. It's been brought up in the past by Mom and I, but she always brushes it off and gets upset. My BF drove me over. I can't drive, and he offered to drop me before he had to head out for plans of his own near home and come back when he was done. I assumed after dinner we'd just hang out at her house either way. Get to the place and start calling my sister. She usually doesn't say if she's going to be late, but if my mom's with her, she does, and I hadn't heard anything. I get Mom a few minutes later, and she says they're behind because it took a while to get my nephew, who's almost 1, ready, and my sister got in the shower later than expected. I didn't even know my nephew was coming, and she usually tells me if he is. Her husband was apparently there to let Mom in when she showed up, but went back to sleep as soon as she got there. Not sure why he couldn't help get baby ready, but that's none of my business. I check maps and it says 35 minutes, adding in getting baby strapped and secure and then putting him either in the stroller or front carrier on her body. I was looking at 40 minutes. To top it off, we had reservations. She made the reservation, not me. I'd never been to this place and didn't know if it was one of those places that don't let you have the table if your whole group isn't there. There was really no space to wait inside and I'd have to stand outside. Anyway, I didn't feel like sitting alone for 40 minutes even if I could. She doesn't keep her friends waiting this long when they make plans. I don't get why it's okay to do this to me and Mom. I'm speaking to Mom as they're trying to change the reservation online. At that point, I was fed up. If we agree to be there at a certain time, be there. 5 or 10 minutes late is fine, but not this. I told Mom I was going back home. I didn't feel like fuming at the table and acting like I wasn't mad when they got there, as I'd done before. She sounded hurt and mad, but said fine, and that she'd go home too. Since then, I haven't spoken to my sister. It's been a few weeks, and Mom doesn't want to get in the middle, but I told her I wasn't speaking to her until I get an apology. Mom told her she can't keep doing this on their ride back home and agrees it's an issue, but won't say much else. It's ridiculous to just always be late because you're bad at time management. She also wants to use the "it takes long to get a baby ready" excuse, which I would accept if it wasn't for the fact that this has been a problem long before my nephew was born or even a thought. It's time to stop making plans with her at all. At the very least, leave all travel on her. If she wants to meet up, she can make it to your place. And our second story. My ego grew 3 times that day. So I managed a small hardware and worked the closing shift. It was a particularly long day dealing with people and their sump pump problems or their drainage issues. You can only explain the basic function of a sump pump so many times before you lose faith in your customers. So there I am with my skeleton crew, praying to our Lord and Savior, the hour hand of the clock, for the sweet release of our shifts, 9 p.m. Everything was fine and dandy until 5 minutes before closing when a woman in her 60s comes in through the door. My cashier and floor hands stare this poor woman down with pure disbelief in their eyes. How dare she come into our store 5 minutes before close? The thoughts of my crew. Realizing what's about to transpire, thinking the woman would just walk around refusing help and stating that she's just looking, I jump into action. Me. Hello, welcome to XXX. What are we working on today? OL. Oh, hello. I need help getting some hardware for my daughter's bed frame and headboard. Me. Okay, that's not a problem. What size hardware do you need? OL. I don't know what size they are. It's just a bed frame. Me. Oh, okay. Well, how does everything connect together? Bolts through frame to nuts, threaded inserts? Let's see what we're dealing with just to see if we can figure something out. OL. Oh, I don't know. I don't know how it goes together or how it connects. I don't know what the screws go into. I don't know, it's just a post, a bed frame, and I need the screws for it. It's a metal bed frame, screws don't go all the way through it. Info. Every customer seems to call screws, bolts, and nuts the same thing. Screws. Me. Okay, so here's what I'm going to propose. There are a variety of bolts and screws that can be used for bed frames and headboards. The two most common sizes are 1/4 inch and 6 millimeter. However, it can also be a 5/16 inch or 8 millimeter and maybe larger. So here's what I want to do. Let me grab you one of everything. I'll grab you one of each bolt that's commonly used to start with, and you can take them home and have your daughter or yourself try each one of the bolts. From what you're describing, sounds as if the bed frame already has some threaded inserts, so for now, we won't worry about any nuts. I'll go ahead and grab you bolts with different heads on them so you can differentiate which is which and help eliminate any confusion. Once you figure out what hardware you need, bring everything back and we can get you situated with the proper hardware. Just show one of my floor guys or myself the bolt that fits and we can get you what you need. The woman kind of just stared at me for a minute as the info that flew out of my mouth found its way into her head. Eventually, she got the message and exclaimed, "Wow, that's brilliant. I would have never thought of that. Thank you. You're a big help. That'll make this a lot easier because, to be honest, I have no idea what I'm supposed to get." Yada, yada, yada. She continued to praise the store and myself as I gradually pushed her up towards the register to check out and leave so we could all go home. From there, she continued to praise myself and the store to the pleasure of my cashier. When she finally left, the clock hand struck 9 and we were able to close up. The cashier and floor hand started to joke around, saying how she wanted to date me and that I got a new admirer and whatnot. But it didn't matter to me. My ego was already ballooned from all the praise I got. They were just jealous. Keep this story in your back pocket for a future job interview, RE, conflict resolution, quick thinking, etc. And our next story. Lazy, worthless coworker is now unemployed. Several years ago, I had a coworker who was absolutely worthless. She called in sick at least every other week with some malady, was always out running around, chatting and socializing instead of working, and just generally leaving the rest of us to fill in for her. Another coworker, who I'll refer to as Fed Up, was really sick of dealing with her because we were the ones expected to take her calls and take care of her customers while she was out or away from her desk. I had complained loudly and often to my manager to no avail. For some reason, she took it as if I were challenging her authority rather than believing I had a legitimate complaint. One day, she basically told me she was sick of hearing about it. I obviously had a personality conflict and to drop it or else. Well, I dropped it, but I was PO'd. Finally, one week, everything came to a head. Worthless handled one of our large clients, and we were getting a lot of calls from their customers, so many, in fact, that my supervisor told me and Fed Up that we needed to help Worthless because she couldn't possibly handle all the calls. I was livid. Maybe if she spent her time at her desk instead of running all over the office, she could handle the calls. Anyway, I did what I was told, but I fumed the whole time. Worthless was also in the habit of leaving early every day. At about 20 minutes to closing, she'd shut down her computer and go sit in another coworker's office and blab for 10 minutes, and then they would leave together while I was still working. One afternoon, after she left, I still had about 10 of her unanswered calls, so I sent them back to her desk. I figured if she had time to leave early, she had time to return her own calls. Well, apparently the next day, Worthless tattled to the boss because she came to see me about the phone calls. I'd had it. I told my boss exactly what happened and why I sent the calls back. I guess this time she agreed with me because we didn't have to help her with calls anymore. The whole time this was going on, Worthless was bitching nonstop about this client. She was so PO'd about having to take all these calls and griped all the time. Well, she decided to vent on Facebook and, idiot that she is, made disparaging comments about one of our biggest clients online. As if that's not bad enough, she was friends with at least 20 coworkers, all of whom saw her rant. Most of them were friends on Facebook, name only, because in reality, very few people could stand her. So one of her friends screenshotted the page, printed it out, and gave it to Fed Up. We then mailed the screenshot of her rant to the HR manager from outside the office and sat back and waited. 2 days later, Worthless was escorted from the office. Rumor has it that HR had her termination paperwork ready before they even called her in. And our last story. Farmer blocks road, but my mom fights back and wins. My mom has lived in her house out in the Maryland countryside since 1996. Her property sits at the end of a mile-long winding gravel road that's tricky to navigate, especially in bad weather. Because of this, she prefers using another road, let's call it Flat Road, that borders the southern edge of her property. In fact, her property line extends 9 feet into Flat Road. This road provides safer and easier access to the main road and is crucial for emergency vehicles. All deliveries like those from Amazon are routed via Flat Road because GPS systems recognize it as the primary access point. Since moving in, my mom has used Flat Road regularly without any issues. There are 4 properties adjacent to this road, and all the neighbors have traditionally used it for easy access. Everyone got along, and there was a mutual understanding about the shared use of the road. However, last month, my mom received an unexpected letter from a lawyer representing one of the property owners, a farmer who lives at the far end of Flat Road. The letter was a demand forbidding her and the other neighbors from using the road any longer. It stated that Flat Road would now be considered the farmer's private driveway, and he would be erecting a "Do Not Enter Private Property" sign at the entrance. True to his word, the sign went up shortly after. My mom was shocked and confused. She'd been using this road for over 2 decades without any problems. To make matters worse, the farmer constructed a blockade on the road using tractors and chains, effectively cutting off access. When she discovered the blockade, she immediately contacted the local police. They arrived and instructed the farmer to remove the obstruction, which he reluctantly did. However, my mom was now anxious about what he might do next if she continued to use the road. Determined to stand up for her rights, my mom wrote a letter to the farmer's attorney. She pointed out that her deed explicitly states that the 18-foot road, Flat Road, is for the benefit of the adjoining landowners. She also mentioned that sending a demand letter without legal justification was an abuse of the attorney's professional conduct rules. The lawyer replied, arguing that the deed does not contain any explicit reservation, nor does it make explicit that the land conveyed is subject to any easement or right-of-way. Whether or not the language in the survey description establishes your claim to an explicit right-of-way is certainly open for debate and will likely not be decided until a judge bangs a gavel down at the conclusion of a trial. Feeling unsettled but not defeated, my mom decided to consult a real estate attorney who specialized in property law. After reviewing her deed and the correspondence, the attorney assured that the phrase "for the benefit of the adjoining landowners" in her deed was a clear indication of an easement that granted her the legal right to use Flat Road. Together with her attorney, my mom gathered additional evidence to strengthen her position. They collected historical records, old maps, and even testimonies from longtime residents who could attest to the shared use of Flat Road over the years. They discovered that the road had been openly and continuously used by all adjacent landowners for more than 20 years, which under Maryland law could establish a prescriptive easement as well. Her attorney reached out to the farmer's lawyer with a detailed letter and outlined the legal basis for my mom's right to use the road and requested that any further attempts to block access cease immediately. The letter also warned that continued obstruction could result in legal action, including an injunction and a claim for damages. A few weeks later, the farmer's attorney proposed mediation to resolve a dispute without going to court. My mom agreed, hoping for a peaceful resolution. During the mediation session, her attorney presented all the evidence supporting her right to use Flat Road. The farmer seemed taken aback by the depth of the evidence. "I wasn't aware of all this history," he admitted. "I thought the road was part of my property and I had the right to restrict access." My mom replied kindly, "We've all been using this road for years without any issues. We respect your property and we just want to continue accessing our home safely." After much discussion, the mediator helped them reach an agreement. The farmer acknowledged the easement and agreed to remove any signs or blockades restricting access. In return, the neighbors agreed to contribute to the maintenance of Flat Road, sharing the cost proportionately to keep it in good condition. They also agreed to communicate openly about any future concerns. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.